I'm Jacob Chandler, and I'll be conducting an interview with a veteran of military service. Today is October the 4th, 2015. I will be interviewing Brother Terry Townsend. He served in the military during the post-Vietnam era. This interview is part of my Eagle Scout Service Project. The LaSalle Veterans Exhibit and interviews are part of my Eagle Scout Service Project. The LaSalle Cultural Center of Jena, Louisiana will display on LaSalle Veterans Exhibit. Our mission is to preserve our LaSalle Parish heritage. The veterans of LaSalle Parish often have experiences from the time of service that go untold. Brother Terry, what time or era did you serve in?
I served in the post-Vietnam era.
Yes, sir. What branch of service were you in?
I was in the United States Air Force.
What was your rank?
My final rank was Staff Sergeant, or E5.
Would you point to the areas on this map where you served at?
Sure. Well, I first went to basic training in San Antonio. And then after basic training, I went to Denver, Colorado for my tech school. After tech school, I ended up at England Air Force Base in Louisiana. And then from there, I went to Livorno, Italy. I spent 3 years there. And then after that, I went to Moody Air Force Base in Valdosta, Georgia. Spent 1 year there. And then back to England Air Force Base. Spent 2 years there and got out of the Air Force.
Yes, sir. Let's see. How old were you when you entered into military training?
I was 19 years old.
Yes, sir. Why did you choose the Air Force branch to serve in?
Well, we lived near an Air Force base, and the planes flew over all the time, and that kind of influenced me. And I also did not want to go into the war zone. I wanted to be in the Air Force where we sit back and fly over to the war zone.
Yes, sir. What all places did you train at? I know you mentioned just a minute ago.
I trained at, first of all, basic training in San Antonio, Texas, and that was 6 weeks. And then I went to munitions school in Denver, Colorado, and was there for 3 months. After that, I went to my first duty station at England Air Force Base in Alexandria, Louisiana.
Yes, sir. What was your training like?
Well, basic training, first of all, was to beat all the softness out of me and to get me into being the mindset of working as a team. And then the training for munitions was to how a bomb was made, how it was defused, diffused, how to haul them, how to store them, how to take care of them. It was mainly classroom, and then we went to do some hands-on stuff.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any specialty training or a survival school kind of deal after that?
No, it just sent you right into the zone where you start working with bombs and stuff like that.
Yes, sir. Did you feel that your training was adequate for your service?
Yeah, but mainly it was textbooks. It's like most things. It's the hands-on stuff that really where you begin to learn. And we had fake bombs at tech school, or we had real bombs at the air base.
Yes, sir. During your service, what positions did you serve in, or job assignments did you have?
Okay, my first job assignment when I went to England Air Force Base was to work in munitions storage, where we would check the bombs in the igloos and store them, line them up, mainly keep the bombs in safe condition. It wasn't too long after that someone asked me if I would be interested in working in munitions control. And that's kind of the hub of where they call in the orders and what they need on the flight line and stuff like that. So I got to do that on midnights from 11 at night till 7 in the morning, and just work hand in hand with the line delivery guys to get the bombs out to the planes and stuff like that. When I went to Italy, I was one of the highest ranking NCOs, and we were building a bomb dump. And there was manufacturing, they built 17 igloos to store bombs. And I had to train young guys who were just coming in on how to drive forklifts and how to store bombs, how to properly store bombs, how to count bombs, how to defuse and fuse bombs. Then from there, after 3 years, I went to Moody Air Force Base, and I was in charge of the line delivery. Line delivery is basically you just deliver the bombs to the flight line so that other munitions guys could load them up on the planes.
Yes, sir.
Then I went from there back to England Air Force Base, and I served in the line delivery guys there also, and I was in charge of the shop and mainly during the daytime, getting the bombs to the flight line and back to storage.
Yes, sir. Do you remember what all kind of bombs and styles that you worked with?
I worked anywhere from Mark 82s, which was a 500-pound bomb, Mark 84's 2,000-pound bomb. We had a lot of rockets, and we also had, at England Air Force, we had a missile unit, and I worked hand in hand with them storing missiles, the old AGM. When we went to Italy, while we were there, that was the biggest bomb munitions delivery to the continent of Europe since World War II, and it's all coming to us.
Wow. Yes,
So
sir.
we would, they would bring it over on tankers, and you could look out out into the bay, and you could see tanker after tanker just lined up. Any day, some days you would see 20 to 25, and they were all with live munitions.
Wow.
When we got there, we had the AGM bombs, surface-to-air missiles, anything you could think of to put a hurt on people. We had cluster bombs, all kinds.
Yes, sir. Well, did you or your group you were with earn any recognitions or decorations?
Oh yeah, of course we meritorious service. We got an award for bringing all the bombs in and actually safely storing them in proper and ready to proper storage and getting ready to be used. And found out later they were used in the Iraq War. So, but we had just basically, if you did your job right, you got an award.
Yes, sir. Wow. Can you describe a typical day in the service?
Sure. Well, the typical day at England Air Force Base would be I go in about 7:30, and we would have our job descriptions, things we'd have to do, what bombs we'd have to go look at and see if they were properly stored. And every day there was a munitions inspection team would want to check certain boxes of ammo or certain bombs to see if they met the specifications and make sure that nothing was stolen over the night. So we would go and get the bombs, take them to the inspectors, and then we'd wait until they got done. Sometimes during the day we would actually be called on to assist line delivery and loading bombs onto the trailers, or even munitions, bullets for the ammo for the A-10s, and we would load that up on the trailer and take it to them, and then they would take it out to the flight line. When we got to Italy, for the first year and a half, it was basically just training people. And then after that, after like the last 18 months, we worked 12-hour shifts, 24 hours a day, bringing all those bombs in, all that ammo in from those tankers and stuff, and that was a long day.
Yes, sir.
It was just basically, I didn't do a whole lot of unloading. The Italians would unload it and put it on trucks and then bring it to us, and I would tell them where to put it in the igloos. And we had some young guys that never drove before that were driving forklifts with bombs on them, and they had never seen a real bomb, and they dropped a few, and we all ran. But basically, that was it. Once you got your job, it was more like an everyday job. It was just happened to be in the military service.
Yes, sir. What all did soldiers usually do while they were off duty?
Say that again?
What all did soldiers usually do while they're off duty?
Okay, what I did is I played intramural sports. I played baseball, basketball, football, mainly flag football. Especially when we were in Italy, we didn't have television. It was a good thing. Didn't have radio unless you wanted to listen to the Air Force network, and they played oldies and stuff like that. But mainly we got involved in sports. I coached a T-ball team for the captain who was in charge of my munitions area. His daughter played, so I coached the T-ball team. we always went to church on the on Sundays. When I was at England Air Force Base, we went to church on Sunday morning and Sunday night and Wednesday night because they fed us. And I would always bring my friends, and we met girls there, and you know how that ends.
Yes, sir. Well, do you know any particularly memorable experiences you had while you were over there?
Well, in Italy, when we knew we were building up for the big ammo download, we had no idea just how many tankers and transport things were coming. And when to look out there and see them as far as you can see, that was pretty awesome to think. And then to see them leaving was even better. But we had a great time, learned a lot about each other, and developed some good friendships. I was actually stationed on an Army base. And there was two components to the Air Force. There was about 40 of us and about 400 Army guys on that base. One was called Harvest Eagle, and those were the guys that deployed bear-based stuff to Iraq or wherever they were going. And then we had the ammo things, and met a lot of good friendly Italians, and realized that all we had to say was bomb, and they left. And but developed some good friendships. But that was the main thing, just knowing that we had to work 12 hours days for 6 months, then had a break, and then another 6 months, then had another break, and then I was glad to see that place go. I'm glad that we finally got them all. But that was one good experience that we had. And then when I was in Moody Air Force Base, I worked nights, and you could see the F-15s taking off. Even in the fog, you just see the blaze, and just know that you were part of a rapid deployment force was pretty awesome.
Yes, sir. Do you remember any do you recall any particularly humorous events? Or
Just we had when we were downloading all that ammo, they would bring cluster bombs stacked up in 3 high, and they're like big crates, probably as big as this room, about halfway, and they'd be stacked up high, and when they come, they would be going like this. And the Italians, they had their policemen out there just guarding everything. And one time we saw it tipping, and I knew that it was in a container, that nothing was going to happen to it. It was like so much styrofoam around it. Well, when it fell, we turned to tell them it was going to be okay, and they were gone. Another time we would have new ammo troops come in Italy, and we had a cement bomb that we painted real. And we would go through this, and I'd always ask them, well, you know how you test for a dud? And they would say, of course we don't. Of course. So we took out a big sledgehammer and hit it, and they took off, and we had the biggest fun time.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. You got to have some humor in to make the mundane happy.
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir. Well, after your service, what did you do? Did you go into work, or did you go to college on GI Bill?
I went to college on the GI Bill. Went to Louisiana College. I had accumulated the full GI Bill. I was one of the last ones to get the full GI Bill, so I didn't have to put any money in. I just got to take money out. And I went to Louisiana College, finished there in 2.5 years, and because I didn't have a break in my benefits, I went straight to seminary. So I actually got 5 years worth of benefits from the GI Bill, versus most people only get 48. So they paid for both my college degree and my master's degree.
Yes, sir. How did your military service affect your future, for your your later jobs and occupations you had?
Well, one thing the Air Force, the military did for me, it made me a more disciplined person, more organized person. It developed leadership skills that I didn't realize I had, speaking skills that I would have never dreamed of. But even affects the way I do ministry today, because, and you're well aware of it, I'm very organized, and I always try to prepare for the things that might happen. And I try to, I want to say I run a tight ship, but I think if everybody just does what they're supposed to do and they don't act stupid and stuff like that, we have a better experience. So it's helped me to discipline myself and also discipline other people.
Yes, sir. I remember you said during service you made some close friendships. Do you continue any of those today?
Yes, when I was first stationing in the Air Force Base, I lived in a dorm. I wasn't married, and one of my first roommates was Butch Maynard, and he was from Boston, and and I'm being from Ohio, we had a difficult time understanding what he was saying and what I was saying. I knew what I was saying, but he didn't understand. But when you're roommates with people, you learn a lot about them, and we had a lot of wrestling matches and stuff like that. But we developed a close friendship, and he lives in Alexandria today, and I can call him at any second, and he'd be right there beside me. Another young man I met when I was in Italy, when Diana and I were married and we went to Italy, we met an Army couple called Charlie and Gertrude White. And it was a black couple, and I don't know if you know much about that, but there was a real stigma in Italy about black people, especially white people and black people together. And they were real good friends with ours, and I keep keep in touch with Charlie through Facebook. Developed a lot of other friendships when I was in the Air Force. They just kind of, when I got out and went separate ways, they just kind of, aren't really I wouldn't be able to call that person and say they're close friends.
Yes, sir. Well, have you been involved in any veterans organizations or anything like that?
I can't say I have. I go to Veterans Day parades and all that.
Yes, sir.
I speak highly of the vets. My father was in the Army during World War II, and his brother was in the Army during World War II, and my uncle served in the Korean War, and my other uncle served in the Vietnam War. I think that had a lot of influence on me. But to say I'd be involved in an organization, no, I really, not because I wouldn't want to, I just don't have that time.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you, Brother Terry, for your service today, for your service, and also for your time today. I'd also like to thank Caleb Hudmel for filming today, and I believe that's it.
Okay. All right. Did you get that? Because I can't remember anything I said. No,
Did it say record?
We would store this part of the bomb, and they would come on in crates. There'd be 2 slats, and there'd be like 6 bombs to a pallet. And this is a fuse, a Mark 82 fuse. We would have those in big old wooden boxes, and they'd be stored. And then they would have the fins, and we'd have those in crates, and they'd be stored. So that if you went into the warehouse, you would see probably thousands of bombs with different lot numbers and different sections, and you would be able to look down them at the first one and not see anymore. It'd be that straight line. If they weren't in straight line, you'd have to get them out. We'd stack them about 16 high. Okay? And the fuses and all the other equipment would be stored in that same area, but they would be off to that. And then the fuses. So if they called and said, we need 16 Mark 82s, we would go get 16 Mark 82s, and then we get the fuses, and then we get the fins for them. And then the Mark 84, this is a 500-pound bomb. Mark 84 is just a 2,000-pound bomb. So that's pretty typical what we have. They probably don't have a whole lot of those anymore.
Yes, sir.
Now they have them with a fuse on them. It's a smart fuse that you just has a timer. This is there's all different kind of fuses. Like this fuse is probably just one. As soon as it hits, it blows up. We had long nose fuses where it would actually hit the ground and blow up above the ground. And then, of course, when they would put this on the plane, they would set the timer, so it wouldn't go off as soon as it was released. It would go off when the timer went off, and that would just set the chain reaction. So when we went to training school, they taught us all about this, but you just see it in a book. So then you went to the base, and you would begin to see those things, and you realize that right there can hurt a lot of people. Okay. Then we had 2.75 rockets. See if you can Okay. See, these are all different kind of rockets, and what would they would do, they would have the A-10 or any of the planes they would attach this rocket launcher on the wing of the plane. And we would go get those, and we would load them into rocket containers, and you would just be like, you'd be like an assembly line. The first guy would just like this. And if you weren't paying attention, that rocket would go on the ground. And these are most of the ones we have with white phosphorus. So they would, water wasn't the way to put those out. So you have a big old container, a big old tub with sand in it. So one went off and you wouldn't know it was starting to leak. You'd throw that thing in there and then you'd book it. Some people would shut the door. I would just tell everybody to get out. But we would load those, send them. You have to make sure you're static. You know, you don't have any static or anything like that, because they could go off in a heartbeat. And we would just load those up. And line delivery would take them to put them on the planes. They shot those all the time. Of course, we had the bullets for the machine guns. We had bullets for everybody in there. But those were the two main things on England Air Force Base that we had. And then we had cluster bombs and all kinds of different stuff, that the newest stuff they had back then in Italy.
Yes, sir. All right.